It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today. Welcome back to Reality Check. We are your hosts, Jess and Jill, and today we're going to talk about muscle memory, metabolism, and just anything along the lines of taking time off, whether it's life happening, an injury, a vacation, pregnancy. I just had a client who said, I'm going to Europe for 10 days. I just made so much progress. Am I going to lose it all? And I was like, no, please go have fun in Europe. It's 10 days. So we want to talk about the actual, just to give like a simple, like scientific understanding, because I think that's going to help you chill out a little bit and not be so worried about losing progress that you spent years building potentially a foundation of. And I promise it doesn't all disappear in a matter of days. So that's really what we want to break down. So muscle memory, how to train when you're coming back, really what like having a muscle does for you, maintenance.
How to bounce back easier. Yeah. Like I'm putting bounce back in air quotes, but I think like a lot of times we think we're always just going to gain it all back, but that's because we were losing it the wrong way. So it was actually downregulating our metabolism. So like how to set yourself up for your body to do the work for you during these situations when life happens, like stuff comes up, injuries happen, pregnancy, postpartum, long vacations, whatever the case may be, like life happens. So train your body to be the machine that's working. Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, a lot of that comes down to, all of it comes down to having more muscle and having metabolic flexibility. And I think that, like Jess said, we're always going to extremes, and losing weight versus losing fat, or focusing on just being smaller instead of getting stronger. And that is where we end up in that trap where we feel like we're yo-yoing on and off for years, because we never actually develop the tools that not only we need mentally, but that our body needs to be sustainable, and how you can be really that girl that you're like, how does she eat all that and not gain weight? Or how does she do X, Y, and Z? And I know Jess and I talked about this on a recent episode, and I don't remember which one it was, but we kind of talked about how like when we get together or when we're at like a special event, we always are thinking about like protein and hydration and whatever, like our basics, but we're often eating fun foods and being present in those moments because we can, and because we don't do that all of the time, or because we're not living in periods of restriction. It's funny. I had a client recently say, like, I would rather deficit in the summer because I know I'm going to go over on the weekends. So I'll just restrict during the week and offset on the weekends. And I'm like, no,
that's the opposite.
That is the wrong thought process. We want to get you to a place where you have more metabolic flexibility, and you're not going to have that in a deficit, especially if you're living in one chronically. So
anyway. And when we say like, I want to give this caveat because this is not what the episode's about. The episode is about like how to optimally set up your metabolism as much as possible. But what Jill just said about like when we get together, we kind of eat whatever we want and we'll have some drinks and whatever. But like, I think every day is not a special occasion also, right? So there is a matter of, okay, if your 10-day vacation to Europe is 10 days, what are you doing the other 3 months leading up to it, right? Because I think a lot of times people are like, yeah, it's a special occasion, but then a random Tuesday, they don't feel like doing the workout, so they don't. And then a random Thursday, they have a few beers at trivia night, and then a random Friday. And it's like, okay, we're not saying you can't have like, you can't fit in fun stuff a little bit each week. You certainly can, but like, if you see me out having drinks with Jill, that might happen like once a quarter. It's not every single weekend. Like you know what I mean? So like we want to reel it in and be realistic in that way also.
Yeah, for sure. So we want to talk about first, which I feel like we should go almost like by scenario, and then we can kind of like do our tangents like we always do. But I think probably one of the biggest ones is postpartum. It's funny, we get clients who come to us who say, I want to get in shape before pregnancy. We have clients who come to us at 30 weeks pregnant. Those scenarios are going to look very different. But at the end of the day, we're always going to approach postpartum in the same manner. We will not diet a postpartum client for 6 to 12 months after they give birth, and also they take their time off, of course, whether that's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. We certainly don't follow, like, if a client comes to us and says, my doctor said I'm cleared at 6 weeks, we're not just going to throw them into like barbell
lift
day one, right? Like, we are going to ease back in. I don't care. There's no blanket rule for healing, and we have to make sure that your body is healed, and that takes time. We have to rebuild all of that strength. You just delivered a whole human, and that takes time. So I also want to talk not only about, like, again, air quotes, like bounce back, how you can actually make that bounce back a gazillion times easier for yourself postpartum without having to
and it still takes time. It still takes a year, but you might look back and be like, whoa, I can't believe I look so different in a year. And I didn't extreme diet. I didn't diet. Right. I think I got like the most DMs ever during and after my pregnancies, because I think when we're just fit all the time, right? Like right now, this is just our normal life. During pregnancy, I had 2 pregnancies back to back within 2 years, gaining 30 pounds, losing it, gaining 30 pounds again, losing it. It was like people got to see it from an outside and be like, oh shit, the stuff she's saying actually works. And I would share videos of myself with my extra belly fat and with, like, in my sports bra. Hey, you guys, look, I'm not doing anything special. I'm still doing the same lifting that I was doing before. Now maybe I'm having to relearn how to connect with my core during my squats. Maybe I'm not going as heavy, right? But it's the same program. And I did a lot of, because a lot of people would message and say like, well, how'd you lose it? I would always tell them, like, what I'm doing now is not how I'm losing it. It's what I did to set my metabolism up by strength training for 5 to 10 years really effectively before getting pregnant. During both of my pregnancies, especially the second one, I had more complications where I really couldn't lift. And I say couldn't lift. Obviously, I had a little kid at home. I'm lifting her, right? I'm not like being sedentary, but I couldn't work out. I absolutely lost muscle mass. But guess what? Because of my training history, my muscles are more readily able to grow quicker as soon as I start again. I get really easy newbie gains because I have this history of lifting. So yeah, I don't know. I might start sharing some of those before. I feel like people always share like, when I lost 100 pounds, And I'm like, well, this was just, again, par for the course in terms of my routine. Nothing changed. But I think when you guys see the visual of, oh, whoa, she lost all this body fat too, you start to realize you could do it also.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about time off, so if we're talking postpartum specifically, generally that's somewhere around 8 weeks in terms of when you're cleared to work out. Now, I have a lot of first-time moms who are like, I'll be right back at 6 weeks. And I'm like, listen,
it's a mistake.
Let's just touch base and check in, because most of the time they're not factoring in that they have a whole other life and schedule now that they have to adjust to, not to mention newborn schedule just evolves every day, right? There's no rhyme or reason to it.
They're not taking into account sleep and stress, right? Like,
and how they feel.
Your body, your organs literally just got discombobulated inside and ripped apart. And now you need to reconnect with every single muscle. Just going back to how you were doing it before and popping right back in without retraining those connections is a good way to end up compensating with the wrong thing and hurting yourself long term.
Yeah. Jumping back in too soon is dangerous. We always want to make sure that your core is nice and strong, that we're reconnecting with diaphragmatic breathing and other tools that are super important in those early stages of kind of waking everything back up again before you get back into just full-on training. So it's funny, my husband actually says this all the time, and it's really funny. He had to take a week off of training or 2 weeks off of training for work and travel and whatever, and he's like, I've lost everything. And I'm like, you are so dramatic. Now during that time your muscles can feel flatter, right? Because you're not training them regularly, but that doesn't mean that you've literally atrophied and like lost muscle during that time frame.
In just a week or two.
Protein, he eats all of his food. He's doing all of the things that he needs to do to sustain. So when you take that time off, especially if it's a couple of weeks, you're not going to lose that muscle. Now, postpartum, if you're not training for 8 to 12 weeks, you definitely can lose a little bit of that size, a little bit of
and in your 8th month, your 9th month of pregnancy, like, again, I probably took off,
can't train the same
6 months, and maybe I was doing body weight squats, or maybe I was doing incline push-ups. Maybe I was I was absolutely dialing it back. And I know there was some muscle atrophy. Mm-hmm. But when you lose muscle, if you've already had it, it takes less training volume to put that muscle back on. You physically are going to have an easier time. You see this a lot with like past athletes, like football players, bodybuilders, like male athletes who had a lot of muscle mass on them. They stop training, they gain a bunch of weight, they gain body fat, whatever. They start training again and boom, they look shredded. Well, their bodies are now primed to build muscle faster than somebody who's never put on muscle before in their life. So there's kind of like a bell curve when it comes to, okay, newbie gains, you get adaptations really quick. And then it's for an intermediate person, pretty hard. We have to get more strategic with our programming. Once you've put that muscle on, it's a heck of a lot easier to maintain and way easier to put back on if you lose it. It's almost like you now got a break and you get newbie gains all over again, but better.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's ironic that we're recording this at the time that we are, because I had to take a lot of time off of lifting last year. And it's funny, like getting back into it after really 6 months off of consistent lifting. I initially, obviously, I was a lot more sore. Things felt hard. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm starting all over. I cannot believe the rate at which I have been able to increase my weights again. And it's not because I've just become the Hulk, right? Like I'm not doing anything magical. It's just those neural pathways are already there. I already have such a long foundation of lifting and building muscle and that muscle memory. So my foundation is there, right? Everything was kind of left as is. Maybe we just boarded the house up and turned the lights off, but like the house is still there, right? When you go back and turn the lights on and take the boards down, everything was still in place. We just got cleaned up a little bit when you get back, right? So
and this is a lot different than the adaptations that take place if you lose weight strictly by adding cardio or burning calories. So if you're like, yay, I lost a bunch of weight, I lost 20 pounds doing this, cardio or high intensity classes or whatever, and that's how you're losing the weight, that's the methods to losing the weight, what ends up happening is your body becomes more and more efficient at that exercise. So it actually burns less calories in a rested state all the time. So you remove that exercise stimulus and whoa, this is now a big caloric surplus, and now I gain a bunch of weight. Whereas building muscle does the opposite. Muscle is an expensive tissue that acts like insurance. So your body burns more calories all the time, even when you're just resting and doing nothing. This is why we always say, like, I don't care how many calories you burn during a workout. I don't care how sweaty you are. I don't care how high intensity is. Like, yes, that might get you instant caloric deficit just by adding a ton of exercise, right? The long play here is, how hard does every set feel? How challenging am I? Like, how much am I challenging my muscle with tension during that every single rep, every set? That's going to yield the long-term results metabolically that cause your body to burn more calories all the time and then sustain through these tougher periods.
Yeah. So the clients that we have that are with us pre-pregnancy at all, and then they're with us through their entire pregnancy, and then
it's so fun
postpartum after, they're always like 10 out of 10 times just astounded at what their body does after, because they built muscle through pregnancy, right? They learned so many things, but also they just fed their body, right? Because that's like the only time a lot of times we can get women to stop dieting is because they're pregnant and they know, okay, I have to do this for my baby, right? So they're usually eating a way more food than they ever have in their life.
28 to 3,200 calories a day. And it's amazing because then postpartum, usually, and we're setting, like we just said, hey, usually we want you to take that break and give your body grace. Now, I will absolutely put on my client's calendar, hey, here's some pelvic floor work. Here's some deep breathing exercises you can do 4 weeks out. And then eventually we're going to do maybe lying hip bridges on the floor or whatever, right? In the same way, we are prepping them before they go into labor on, here's what this is going to look like food-wise. Your priority is recovering. Your priority is feeding your baby, getting rest, right? Your body's going to be healing. I do not give a shit if you track your food, right? That is the least of our worries, right? So what we want to do is track and manipulate your metabolism to adapt higher and higher and higher and higher during pregnancy. Then as soon as you are postpartum, your body is now in this catabolic state. It's now in a place where it's ready to burn that fat. It is not in this place of building and adding tissue like it is during pregnancy. You don't track and you listen to your body. And let's say we got you up to 3,200 calories a day. Again, I know this sounds probably extreme to most women. I've had many pregnant clients that I've gotten to that place consistently. then they don't track postpartum for the first 3 months and they're accidentally in a deficit, but they're just listening to their body and focusing on adding nutrients so that they feel good, right? So now they're losing weight in those first few months. They go right back to their pre-pregnancy weight and they're amazed. Now, obviously, body composition might be a little bit different. We're not strength training, right? But that part we tackle later and it's easy. But that's what ends up happening. And again, pregnancy kind of makes it a little easier because your body is already in this anabolic, we can build. Okay, let's put as much of those extra calories towards muscle as possible. And then catabolic state. Okay, now we're breaking down postpartum. Your body is kind of working with you in those stages, but that's the same concept we apply to anybody in any muscle building phase or deficit phase, right? We're trying to build your tolerance to higher and higher calories. And then let's say you go to the beach every weekend for the summer and your calories are high. Guess what? I'm not gaining weight during my weekend trips to Dewey because my body tolerates more calories than somebody who is chronically trying to aim for 1,400 calories every single day. And then they go have the same amount that I have in Dewey. They gain weight.
I love that you're saying Dewey. For everyone listening, Dewey is a beach.
I feel like now it's like, okay, listen, I went to school in North Carolina and now I'm seeing like all these girls from my sorority having bachelorette parties there. And I'm like, what? This is our Delaware. Why is everybody coming to Delaware now? But I feel like it has become a popular place. This is where we do. Yeah. This
like
is
a beach vacation.
This is like our hangout weekend. Okay, but insert whatever there, right? The holidays is another really good one, right? Like a lot of women are like, oh, I need to get trimmed up because I have these holiday parties. And it's like, what if instead we adapted your body to high calories so you could eat whatever you wanted during those holiday parties and not gain a thing,
and
right?
Not worry about
How fun would that be? And then in February, when there's nothing going on, go into your diet phase, right? Like plan it around your life so that it makes sense and your body and your life season works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Jess said, when we're explaining like pregnancy, this is for anybody. Like if you spend a period of time lifting weights, focusing on strength, increasing your calorie intake and living at that higher calorie intake, that is actually what's going to give you, because you've also given your body enough energy to build muscle during that time.
If you're training appropriately, right? So that's very much a part of our training with our clients.
Right. So now that is what actually gives you the metabolic flexibility that you're looking for to go on vacation and not feel like you have to diet or think about it or full on YOLO because you'll gain weight and you'll figure it out when you get home. That is what gives you that metabolic flexibility. Now, this is just a sidebar. If you're training in the gym and you're like, I go to the gym and I lift weights and do X, Y, and Z and nothing happens, it's probably because you're not eating enough. And metabolically, you don't have enough energy to even support you as a human, let alone the constant breakdown of that tissue that you're trying to see those physique changes, right? Most of the women that come to us want to look more lean and more toned. That comes with more muscle, and you have to have enough energy to complete that process. Being at 1,200 calories isn't going to do it. So that is the combination in terms of building muscle and having that metabolic flexibility and that muscle memory. But like, I love the term muscle memory because I think that's kind of like, it's the same thing for your metabolism essentially, right? Like it does that in negative adaptive ways and positive adaptive ways, but you've dieted before and you're down regulated in your metabolism and then you diet again and you're like, why isn't this working? I feel like I'm like running into a brick wall. It's the similar concept of muscle memory where your body's like adapted at this lower intake and it's like, no, thank you. Like that's not a deficit for you. So we wanted to talk about this kind of from two angles. One, from having the metabolic flexibility and that muscle can give you that. And then when you have that and you need to take time off, whether that's 1 week, 2 weeks for a vacation or a couple weeks, couple months for postpartum, whatever it is, that's the foundation ultimately that is going to serve you. If you're coming to me 6 weeks postpartum saying, I need to lose all of this baby weight, well, we're now likely going to have to do some restoring. I don't think you were in a deficit. I think it's safe to assume you weren't in a calorie deficit through your pregnancy, but we don't know for sure. But if we didn't work with you through your whole pregnancy, we didn't just spend 9 to 10 months building muscle, relationship with food, eating 3,200 plus calories, right? Like Jess said, we've got to still go through that muscle building phase and give you that fully solid foundation. It doesn't mean nothing is there and that you're starting from scratch, but we got to find what that starting point is and make sure that foundation's there to serve you in the long run, which is
long run,
the
right?
concept
Like we're talking
of the whole
about
program.
sustaining the results that you actually get, because you certainly could go into a deficit. Sure, you can be postpartum and diet. Go ahead. You're probably going to lose weight. You also are probably going to lose lean mass. You're going to downregulate your metabolism more. Your body is already stressed out, so it's going to mess with your hormones, and your cortisol is going to spike, and all this stuff is going to go on because you are not in a place like where you ought to be doing that health-wise. And you have to diet at a lower place than these other people that I'm talking about. Also, the concept, let's loop back around, the concept of muscle memory. So that's like a very throw around term, muscle memory, right? From a scientific standpoint, the way that I have heard it described, which I think is cool, because again, I like to know the why behind it, is these satellite cells, every time you build muscle over the course of time, our cell needs more information, more support to help build more and more muscle. So I always forget this dude's name, so I'm gonna look it up. Mike Israel. He's he's a PhD who is also like Mr. Bodybuilder. The analogy that he describes it as is like if you have a town, and in that town, when it's really small, you only have one police station to support the town, right? Or one fire department. As that town grows and grows and grows, now it needs to pull in and recruit more police officers. And eventually they need to build a second police station, a third police station. These are satellite cells that come in to support this cell. Now this one muscle cell has more nuclei in it. What ends up happening is if you actually atrophy your muscle, let's say you spend lots of years not training, but you used to be jacked, that muscle cell gets smaller and smaller. However, all those extra recruited satellite cells stay. They don't leave that cell, which is physically why it's so much easier, and you need to train with way less volume to gain it back what you've already had in the past. I think this is also relevant when I share my personal workouts and stuff, because I'm in a life season with 2 little kids, working a lot. Oftentimes I train 2 days a week. Now I'm doing very effective workouts. I'm lifting with very heavy volume, but I'm able to get away with that and continue to see physique change at bare minimum maintenance. Whereas somebody who's newer to their journey, you really do need to be consistent with maybe 3 or 4 lifting days a week to put on that muscle initially, right? I have years and years of lifting 3 to 5 days a week really freaking consistently to get to a place where now I can get away with just 2 days a week and physique wise still be pretty well off, right? So anyway, I wanted to explain kind of like the why behind it, and someday you in 5 years can get away with doing less in terms of total overall volume.
Yeah, absolutely. And so kind of what Jess said about muscle memory too. So when you take that time off, we kind of talked about you have that foundation already in place, but if you did take longer time off for some reason, I touched on this briefly, but I want to be clear that less is more at first, ease your body in. I'm guilty of this in the past, and I was a lot smarter coming back into training this time, where I just am I barbell squatted 170 before, so I'm just going to do it again. Do not do that. You are going to tax your nervous system so heavily that you're going to be like, oh my God, this is awful. You're going to feel terrible. You're going to be so sore. And it's going to be well beyond a healthy amount of stimulus in terms of what you're doing. But really,
still the minimum of effective dose rule still applies in either case, right? So when you're a newbie, you don't need that much stimulation for it to be to create an adaptation. Eventually your body adapts to it and gets used to it. Now you need to add more and more and more, right? Well, guess what? When I take 6 months off, again, I'm not recommending that. I probably was still working out once or twice a week, but doing less. When I take a bunch of time off, now my body's responding as a beginner again. I absolutely don't need to go throw everything right back at it. Why? If I'm able to do the least and get results, do the least, because at some point you're going to adapt and you will have to add more.
Yeah, absolutely. So prioritize form recovery. Like Jess said, start with 2 or 3 days a week. Don't just full send, go all the way back in. Make sure that you're prioritizing the things that will support that new amount of activity that you're going to be doing. So your protein, your rest, all of those things that we would generally recommend, but ease back into it. Worst case is you have room to grow, and you can do, if you felt really good in that first week with 2 lifts of going a little bit lighter and form felt good, everything felt good, then ramp it up from there, and you'll kind of know what your starting point is. But generally speaking, just train smart after time off. Even if it is 2 weeks from vacation, don't try to just PR the next time that you go in the gym. I mean, if you're feeling good, go for it, obviously, but just be smart when you're going back in and don't try to just constantly push and do more and more and more. It's always smarter, not harder.
And it doesn't mean you're going to just gain that. If you have to go a little lighter, you've gained all of your muscle, or you've lost all of your muscle gains.
Yeah.
There's another, sorry for nerding out, but I like this one too. There's a study that they did on two groups. One of them trained continuously for 24 weeks. The other one trained 6 weeks on, 3 weeks off for 24 weeks. They controlled the volume and intensity of their workouts. So that piece was controlled. There was no difference in muscle gain, right? So 6 weeks on, 3 weeks off, they only ended up training for 15 total weeks of the 24 weeks. But because their training volume was equated, they didn't lose any muscle. Now, what they saw was after those times off, their strength would go down a little bit, but then they would gain it right back. And they would end up catching right back up to where they were before they took that time off. So that often happens. I've also seen the opposite happen where somebody, I have a client now and she is a high achiever she's very consistent with her exercise, and it's a mental outlet for her as well. She's in a high stress job. We take a week off after like me kind of pulling teeth, like, dude, your body is sending stress red flags everywhere, right? She comes back and she's lifting heavier than she was before because her body just needed to fully recover because she was running it into the ground, right? So both can happen, but it's not an indication that you've just like lost all your progress somehow.
Yeah, and they actually say that you regain that phase after time off, you regain things a lot faster, even like 2 to 3 times faster than your initial round, because you've already created all of those nuclei inside those muscle cells, which is part of that process through muscles getting bigger, right? You grow those fibers, but also that nuclei creation. So that's already there. So you're not starting from scratch. It's like right to work in terms of like activating protein synthesis and rebuilding and going through that hypertrophy process after that time off. So it comes back, like I felt that way. Like I was like, oh my God, I look like a noodle. And like 4 weeks in, I was like, oh, I feel like I look right back to where I was. Like it's a really fascinating process when you understand how it works. And that oftentimes that time off, like we talk about deloads and stuff. I said this to Jess before we got on, like bodybuilders will sometimes train really hard for their shows and then take like 3 months off after to like replenish glycogen stores for the sake of their hormones, their metabolic standing, and where they're adapted to, but also they just trained so hard with such intensity for so long that they have to have that recovery implemented so that they can then come back better, stronger, all of the things when it's time to start training again. So it's also very intentional. So we're talking about times that are not intentional. Now, do I think you need to go take 3 months off? No, you're not a bodybuilder, right? Like that's a sport and an athlete, but understanding that like that recovery is really important part of that process too, just generally speaking.
They can do that and get away with it.
Yeah.
You can certainly afford to have a rest day and not like be scared that you're going to lose all your
That's
gains.
what I'm saying. Like big picture, but also granular down to like 1 week, why that rest and recovery is so critical for that rebuilding of the muscle process. Remember, we're breaking it down when we're working out. That rest, that sleep, that recovery, that's the time that everything builds back and gets stronger and helps you actually see those changes and feel those changes. So that's an important part too.
And a lot of times we notice these wins in our clients when they're doing the things they've always done, and this time they're not gaining weight, right? Like just maintaining through certain life stuff is a win. I can't even count the number of times, and I'm sure you can't either, Jill, that a client comes back to vacation, they check in with us and they're like, I didn't gain weight this time. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously the last like 4 months, we've just been building muscle. We've been adapting your body to higher calories. Awesome. A lot of times they actually end up losing weight because they're like, whoa, I wasn't tracking and I accidentally didn't eat as much as I've been intentionally eating. Such a cool win, because in the past they were so nervous that they're going to go on vacation and lose all this weight or gain all this weight. And I have a few clients that were in-person clients in the gym too, who would go to Florida for a few months each winter. And that would end up happening is like with past trainers, if they were focused on just cardio or just high intensity or whatever, they would go away, they would gain all their weight back, they would come back, start over, right? When we just focused on, hey, we're going to learn how to lift really well. We're going to learn how to squat. We really focused on muscle building. I was trying to up their weights every single week on the leg press, the leg extension, the hamstring curl, right? They shifted their focus to adding protein and adding strength. And then they would be away for 3 months and come back and not gain, because now their muscle is acting as that metabolic churning machine, right? So those maintenance is a win is kind of what I want to get across here, because I think a lot of times we as women think, oh no, I need physique change. I need to be getting smaller. I need to be fitting in a better pant size, or else there's no progress. And it's like, wait, if you weigh the same, or let's not even put weight into it. If you are feeling the same or better in your clothes, but you're eating more food, that's a metabolic win in itself. If you are maintaining and physique, you're not changing, but you're getting stronger and you have more energy and your libido is better. Health-wise, that's a win. You're working from the inside out, and those physique results will come as a side effect of this stuff. All of these are wins, though, that I think a lot of women don't focus on. Maintaining is a win, and you just need to know what to look for during those seasons of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like when it comes to preserving that lean mass through those seasons of not training, make sure that you're also eating, because that's going to be a big factor in terms of actually fueling your body to sustain. Like Jess said, it's expensive tissue. We want to hold on to that and preserve as much of that as possible during time off, but also during periods of dieting. This also applies, which is where we talk about fat loss versus weight loss, and that's a whole nother episode. But we want to preserve that muscle mass during that periods where we don't have that stimuli, right, of training regularly.
Protein is
for our
king.
muscles.
Protein,
So calories,
protein.
but protein specifically is going to be so important during that time. And then if it's a period of like injury or lack of access to equipment where, I don't know, maybe you're staying at an Airbnb for a month and you only have dumbbells and bands, doing something during that period, if you have the ability to, is great. You don't have to crush PRs every time and push heavier weight every time. You're going to maintain just fine and stay in the game psychologically and physiologically by still going through that and having some sort of stimulus there. Again, time off, we already talked about this, but if you have to go lighter or whatever the case is, that's also more than adequate to like you're
Just to
absolutely
maintain.
not going to lose muscle during that time for sure if you're doing that.
If you're eating enough protein and you're doing some sort of stimulus to your muscle, bare minimum, maintain.
Yeah. And then when it comes to like before a break comes up, so if you know you're getting surgery or you know you're going on vacation during that time, generally speaking, when we're working with clients, I don't want someone to just diet up to the vacation, diet up to the wedding. I'm actually generally, for the most part, at least trying to shift gears a little bit prior to that happening, where we have a little bit more flexibility with metabolism, more flexibility with diet, mentally getting a little bit of a break. So I like to shift gears a couple weeks before the vacation so that it's not just we're in a deficit, we're down-regulated metabolically, and then boom, calorie influx. We want that.
And then you're bloated too, because your body retains more water. So then you do gain a couple pounds, and then people mentally freak out. And it's like, well, there's more food in your stomach and there's more water retention. Like there's other factors. You didn't just gain body fat overnight.
Right. No, that's a great point. So like so often women are like restrict. And then they're like YOLO on the weekends or YOLO on vacation. I go on vacation and don't gain weight because I eat 2,500 calories on a daily basis, because I'm not living in a diet, because I lift weights regularly. So you want that in place before the vacation, because even if you're not overeating a ton and gaining weight, you see the scale go up and you think, oh my gosh, I ate more food. My metabolism sucks. No, like Jess said, you're often pulling in more water because you ate more carbs. It's just more food volume in your body, right? Your body's reacting to a lot of different changes. My body is used to 250 to 350 carbs a day. So I'm generally not eating more. Oftentimes, I'm actually eating a little less on vacation than my normal because I'm moving my body more than
less planning.
I'm not chained to my desk.
You're not stressed out.
I'm not stressed, right? I'm usually eating big breakfast, big dinner because I'm out and about. I'm not snacking as much because I'm not home in front of the TV, right? So that's the difference in metabolic flexibility. So maintaining your metabolism at higher calories, and then not to mention if it's for injury or surgery, protein specifically, but eating enough food will speed up exponentially the healing process after the fact. So you think my activity's down, I need to reduce my intake. No, that's going to be way worse for you. You are not going to gain a bunch of weight by eating at your maintenance calories during that time.
And when we say that, we're still I feel like I always need to give a disclaimer because the people listening are not clients of ours. We're looking at proteins and we're looking at food quality too. If you are not hitting your protein target and you're just getting random calories, well, they said to eat a lot of calories and you're getting it from a bunch of processed shit, you're just going to gain body fat like anybody else, right? Like you need to send the signals with the protein because protein, the amino acids from protein are the building blocks to all of our tissue in our body. So protein isn't just important for muscle, it's important for whatever is trying to heal from that injury, for your tendons, for your ligaments, for your organs, for all the things. Protein is the building blocks to that physical tissue in our body. And if you do not have it, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, for sure. So that's important overall for recovery. And then when it comes to injuries, I know Jess and I have covered this on another episode, but it doesn't hurt to bring it up again, especially in this context, is that if you have an injury, if it's shoulder, if it's I pulled a muscle on this side, whatever, there is plenty of research that shows that training that non-injured limb. So let's say you broke your arm, your left arm, and you can only lift with your right. Training that right arm, the non-injured limb, can preserve size and strength in the injured limb because of the neural pathways and the muscular adaptations that are there can carry over to that untrained side. So you'll actually maintain more strength by continuing to lift with that opposing side during
versus doing nothing.
Injury, whether it's
leg, I had a client like that
who
she hurt her knee during a skiing accident. And yeah, we trained what we could. She was doing one-legged leg extensions in the gym and like all of these different things. But yeah, it preserves the other leg muscle as well.
And it supports faster recovery on that side once you are cleared to train again, and you're reducing the odds of losing muscle as much as possible during that time frame too.
And I think there's something to be said about what you can control, period.
Yes.
Like, what can you do? Because a lot of times people will use an injury as an excuse to, okay, well, I guess I can't train now. Well, this goes for all of these different scenarios, right? If you have an injury in your lower limbs, can you sit and do overhead presses? Can you sit and do a lat pull down, right? There's a lot of stuff you still can do. So rather than playing the victim in any circumstance, okay, what can I do, right? I had a really bad, what is it called? PSPD or something, like basically the joint in the front of your pubic bone shifts during pregnancy. And I was in horrible pain in my hips. Doing anything like a lunge or whatever hurt really bad. Guess what? I could certainly do incline push-ups and inverted rows. And I could do, I couldn't do single leg things like step ups because it would cause pain, but I could do a goblet squat. Like, do what you can do, and it's going to be better than doing nothing. Don't be a victim.
And then, like, overall arching theme here when it comes to muscle memory and metabolic adaptations or flexibility is that restrictive diets and focusing on calories burned. So this falls into eat less, move more brain if you have that. If you live in that state, you're going to have way less metabolic flexibility. You're not going to have the muscle mass to support periods of time off without feeling like you're going to lose it all. Muscle and time at maintenance are going to significantly improve those periods where you need time off from lifting, you're taking time off from, whether it's a vacation, travel, life happening, whatever. That's going to sustain your physique and your health through those periods and give you so much more flexibility. That's what's going to let you thrive through those periods that are a little bit more chaotic versus feeling like you're on again, off again, right? Which is why you see, again, those women who you're like, how do they not have to do cardio all the time and maintain? How can they eat all of that food and not gain weight? How do they go on vacation and eat what they want? That is because they have that metabolic flexibility and they have that muscle memory in place so that when they do take time off, their body's ready to go because they have that foundation already there.
Beautiful.
So
I feel like that's it. I feel like we covered it. Send this to your friends who are scared to take a break and they're overtraining. It's okay to take a break. Your body's going to be fine. Send it to your friends who are under eating chronically, whose metabolisms probably suck, but they lose a bunch of weight and they keep it off and they feel great now. Well, guess what? You probably can't run a marathon for the rest of your life because at some point your knees are going to start to break down, right? Like if you love doing that for fun, great, but not as the primary method to keep weight off. That is the thing here. We're talking about preservation of physical fitness and feeling great physically, physique-wise, right?
Beautiful. That is all for today's episode of Reality Check, and we'll see you guys next time.